Hey guys, Mick from GaelicCraft here, and today we're going to talk about the SkyGrid minigame. And I'm not actually on SkyGrid because that would be way too much of a pain to set this up. We're just going to talk about how you can get points for the SkyGrid server. That. And so I'm just going to go over all the different ways you can get a few points here. So the first one is going to be a single diamond. So one diamond gets you a point. If you have something made of diamonds, those don't count. We want unused diamonds. 2 points is emeralds, and that's it for just the resource collecting. Everything else here is more about what you've done to get resources. So here we have just what we would call a standard farm. It's very small. We would actually want you to make a slightly bigger one than this for it to actually count. I just threw this together though. So that gets you 5 points. If you made it semi-auto, for example, you had a lever that poured some water over it, that made it easier to do your farming, you could get 10 points. And if you had a fully automatic setup, then you could get 15 points. This is something you don't have to touch. You can just open a chest and get everything out of the chest. And both the semi-auto and auto cases, it has to be working at the time of us going through everyone's stuff and checking to see how much points you got. That's it for just the normal farms. If we go on to the shelters, you get 3 points for just having a simple shelter. Make this, you get 3 points. Congratulations. Next up is 25 points for a house. A house has to look like a house. We're not going to have specific requirements, and you don't have to make it look extremely pretty or anything like that. It just has to resemble a house that you would see in real life. So we want a roof on it, and we want there to be multiple rooms, and just like you showed off a little bit extra effort onto it, and you get a house. There is one caveat to that: it needs one thing redstone. So I could make this one have that one thing redstone, although it still wouldn't count as a house because it's not pretty enough. But if I put a lever here, that counts. So you have that, it's a house. Plus the fact that it has to be bigger and look like a house and have lighting and whatnot. A complex is 60 points. A complex is something much larger. It contains generally more than one building, or if it is just one building, it's a very large building. A good description or a good example would be, which I don't have, is something that has maybe a main building that's a house and then like a storage facility. You also need to have a couple things of aesthetic value. So you need like a fountain and a statue. So those things combined on some kind of platform or just some obviously singular setup is a complex. And you'd get 60 points for that. Obviously really hard to do. You don't need to do that to win the game or anything, but it's a good way to get 60 points. Another way to get a good chunk of points is by building mob farms. So a standard one is pretty much the one shown here. I haven't actually checked that it completely meets the requirements, but basically all the mobs that spawn in it have to stay contained within the system, and you don't need anything killing them. For just the standard one, you can kill them yourselves, but you put some sort of effort around the spawner to make sure that everything's nice and contained, so you can come in and kill your animals or mobs. A semi-auto one is one that damages them mostly or partway, but doesn't actually kill them. You have to deal the final blows. And then an auto one is one that kills them completely, puts the resources in a nice little chest for you to gather. For the auto one, we're going to be kind of picky. We don't want the cheapest, lamest setup where they just fall to their deaths. We might give you some points towards that, but we want maybe a little bit of redstone. If it was just one piston shoving a block in their face and killing them, that would be perfect, if you can get your 20 points for doing that. The 25 points is for gold and iron grinders, and they have to be fully auto. So if you made an iron golem grinder or a pigment grinder, then you would get your points for doing that. By the way, I forgot to mention the auto farms, this 15 points here, villagers do count as a way for the farm to be automatically managed. So that could be, for example, semi-auto, but you need to make sure your resources actually go all in one chest. So you may want to try to incorporate villagers, you may not. This doesn't get you extra points, but it is something you can do if you choose so. Moving on to the complex redstone build. This is something that needs to just be obviously complex redstone-wise, as judged by us. So you get $70 if you can make $70, 70 points if you can make something that's obviously complex. You put quite a bit of effort into it. Maybe you wired all the lights in your house to be able to be flipped on by one switch, and it's a substantial house, and that would take a lot of effort. Pretty good. You might get 70 points for that. You might not. Depends on how you did it, really. If you made some kind of really fancy door with sticky pistons and whatnot, you would definitely get it. I mean, we're not trying to get you to build a computer or anything here. The 10 additional points is just for if you made more than one. So say you made a really fancy door and you had a lighting set up in your house, then you could get 80 points in total. Now on to potions. So potions are kind of weird. We don't care how many potions you make, we're more worried about the variety. So if you make just one potion of any sorts that has an effect, it can't be like the aqua potion or anything, it has to have an actual effect, you get 5 points. But if you make 2, you get 6 points. So 2 completely separate potions that don't have the same effect, you can get 6 points for that. But if you make 3, you get 8 points. And beyond that, you would get, for 4 of them, you get 11 points, and for 5, you get 15. The pattern here is that we start at 5, and then for each one above, we add, for the first one above, we add 1 point. For the next one above, we add 2 points, or 3 points total, and so on and so forth. If you're confused by the pattern, sit down and do a little math. I'm sure you can figure it out. This scales up to, because there's 14 different potions, I believe, you could probably get about, I think we were looking at it, somewhere around 90-something points. So with this one, you'll want to be aware that the first point, or the first potion is not really worth the effort to go and make all the stuff you need to make potions. But if you think you can manage making them all, then you get more than the guy making redstone gets. So, trade-offs. And finally, the last way we have, well, second to last way we could have to get points is for level 3 enchantments, and God, I cannot spell. Jeez, okay. Ignore that. You get 25 points for each level enchantment 3 item you have. The only caveat is that it has to be in an item frame on display. It can be used down to the last little bit as long as by the time we judge it's in an item frame. So if we had 2 of these over here, you would get 50 points. 3 would be 75. Very good way to get a large amount of points. And the last one is we do have a little room for creative, useful innovations that we didn't think of that would be vital to a survival situation. So if you can impress us, you can get 10, 25, or even 50 points for just doing something we didn't think of as being worth creative. I can't think of anything that really fits in that situation right now, except for maybe one thing in the 10-point section that Old Doggy mentioned, but we're just going to let y'all maybe see if y'all can guess what that 10-pointer is. For the rest of it, just stick to this system. If you think you can come up with something that can get you extra points, go ahead and put it down and we'll evaluate. But as far as the rules of the competition go, we'll let you know the end date. It is starting Wednesday if y'all are viewing this before we actually start the event. And everything has to be in a presentable manner as far as by the time the competition closes. You should note that once the competition closes, we're turning on the whitelist, meaning you can't join. So if you had diamonds in your inventory and not in a chest, then we're not going to be able to see them. We're not going to open inventories or anything like that. So make sure by that date you have all of your diamonds in your chest so we can count them to get all those single points. And that your farm actually has plants on it. Tilled grass or tilled ground or dirt does not count as a farm. You actually need some plant life on it. And make sure your items are not in your inventory but in the item frames, the level 3 enchantment ones. I hope this makes sense. I imagine the potion one's going to be kind of confusing. but we tried to just make everything pretty balanced. We obviously couldn't give too many points for the first potion if someone made 14, things like that. So within our best efforts, we try to take everything into account, and I hope you all enjoy playing. If you have any questions, just let me know. Bye-bye.